Hi there, this is Katie and Jake with the Family Collective, and today we're going to talk to you about our first home buying process, how it's going to work for other couples, and some tips and tricks you guys can take away to be successful.
Yeah. So we started our home buying process actually a year ago this month, and we closed on our first home a year ago in June. So I guess the first question that is the most important before you are going to buy a home with your significant other is, what do you both want in a house? So going through a checklist of non-negotiables. So what that could look like is making sure you're on the same page, or able to compromise on, how many bedrooms and bathrooms do you want? For us, we were like, we don't really care. It's our first house. We probably at least want to, what area of town you like. That's a big one. Square footage. For us, having a fenced-in backyard for our dog Stella was super important. We actually created a hashtag backyard for Stella. That was like our motivation in getting into a house. So going through that checklist with your significant other is super important, just so you guys are on the same page. And that just makes looking at homes a lot easier. You're able to, rule out the homes that don't work for your needs.
Yeah. So I think the next step is kind of like, once you have a general idea of what you're looking for, that's when you have the fun conversation of starting to talk to banks. So, that's a stressful process in and of itself. Like, who's going to be responsible for the deliverables of getting that done? So, that could be having a conversation about who's going to go do the loan approval, who's going to be getting, your documents together, like your W-2 and stuff like that. And then ultimately, who's going to be the primary point of contact for your agent if you choose to use one. I would recommend one that I have here. She's fantastic.
Thanks.
But yeah, that's an important conversation. You need to communicate early and often about that kind of stuff, so that you're on the right page and you get to the closing table on time.
Yeah, that's great. The third bullet point that we wanted to talk about was, what design choices are you going to make once you move into your home? So, maybe you buy a fixer-upper and you are planning on doing some renovations, or maybe you're buying, a newer build, but definitely, that's our dog, but definitely talking with your spouse as to what you're wanting to do when you move in. For us, the most important thing was getting our bathroom, in more working order. We installed a new vanity, we painted the entire house, and then shortly after, we did some kitchen renovations. So
yeah, I think that's a great segue into kind of our last point, is how do you afford a house? I think that's the question for at least Katie and I's generation, that a lot of people see a house as this unattainable goal where you are
need 20% down.
Right, exactly, and other lies that we believe. So I think if you're not familiar, in the U.S. we have FHA loans that can be as low as 3% down. But ultimately, that sparks the conversation. If you haven't had this conversation with your significant other or yourself, you sure will. You kind of have to have a budget, because ramping up for that kind of thing and making sure that you're disciplined along the way is going to be key to you actually making sure that you stay on track and you have the right amount to put down.
Yes, I'm going to add to that real quick too. Making sure that you get pre-qualified and pre-approved before you actually start looking for homes, because you may only be pre-approved for a $250,000 home when you're looking at $350,000 homes. So it's super important before you start looking to make sure you talk to your lender, get pre-approved, and that will kind of help narrow down what your budget is and what you can afford.
Yeah, and that last point, and it's kind of the conversation that Katie and I had, was do we go for a value add property, meaning that we're going to be doing some of the renovations ourselves, or do we try to go for a new property that may stretch our budget, but ultimately we'll need less renovations? And we opted for the value add property, and just make sure that you've got your budget for that too. So I think in summary, I think the biggest point about like home buying is definitely communication with your spouse. We've said it before, we'll say it again. Communication is key here because if you're on one page and your spouse is on another, I mean they're unseen basically landmines that you could run into. About who's responsible for what, any of that stuff. But those are kind of our big questions that we wanted to help answer for everybody out there. And hopefully we have been able to help you with your home buying process. Let us know in the comments below if you have any other questions that you want answered. Give us a like, give it a share if you thought this was helpful for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.